In an interview published in the Voltaire Network, the Freemasons say that the mercenaries who have served in the guerrilla war in Syria, with experience in Iraq and Libya, and armed by NATO, have been provided with intelligence by the Atlantic Alliance, gathered by satellite, have sabotaged the telecommunications networks, infrastructure, energy, while her coordinated entered in the international media invented stories of revolution and repression in Syria, so viewers have assimilated. The International Observer missions never announced the existence of massive demonstrations against the regime and repression, which contradicts the claims of the Western powers and the Gulf countries. The withdrawal of U.S. support after the Russian-Chinese double veto and the deployment of Russian anti-aircraft equipment has completed the actions of the guerrillas, and the end result left fighters entrenched in a neighborhood of Hormuz, where they proclaimed the Islamic Emirate of Love Baba for a month and offered a television to show falsely that army troops bombed their stronghold, ended with the surrender of the mercenaries after the signing an agreement between the Interior Minister of France, Claude Guint, and Syrian General Asif Chaukat.
The interview with Thierry Meeson continues and indicates the following. The Russian presence in Syria is massive, with 100,000 men who have controlled the air defense system, has defeated the American-Israeli dominance in the area, as these are based on the destructive power air-ground, air-to-air, and ground forces have proven incapable, forcing back the minions of NATO and dismissing the possibility of attacking Iran. The anti-Syrian coalition is based on 4 components. 1. Energy transnationals covet the gas in the region. Considerable reserves have been discovered in the Mediterranean, under the salt crust, and on the continent too. For the US, it is to dismantle the major historical states and small states, replace ethnically homogeneous, easier to manipulate. 3. The Jewish settlement of Palestine intends to break the axis of resistance. This has to change the regime. The overthrow of Bashar al-Assad, replaced by a puppet that would Burhan Ghalian, whose only agenda is to break the Syrian alliance with Hezbollah and Iran, as he was in charge, and to explain the daily Wall Street Journal. Point 4. Religious dictatorships. Gulf survival mandates the removal of Syrian secular model. Syrian secularism is a true partnership of believers to guarantee freedom of each to grow spiritually by following the faith of their ancestors. France believed that succeed play a role as former colonial power and could get something for that role. Nicolas Sarkozy and Alain Juppé, France embarked on this adventure to try to satisfy each of the 4 components of the coalition, and joined the French will suffer unpleasant surprise when they have to pay the invoice for the crimes committed in its name. As for Libya, let me repeat that there never was a revolution against Gaddafi, the murder of Muammar el-Gaddafi, who was tortured to death a day after the French attacked their convoy, and that the disappearance of the leader ended the notion of authority in a tribal society. He reached the goal set. Libyan society is destroyed, as society has been destroyed in Somalia and Iraq. The contagion is now coming to Mali and threatens to spread to Algeria. France and the United Kingdom, acting on behalf of the United States and Israel, have forced Libya to the division of the country. No doubt that Marine Le Pen and Jean-Luc Mélenchon are anti-globalists. But the important thing is whether you are the followers. The National Front of Le Pen, the only one who has condemned the military adventures of Nicolas Sarkozy in Afghanistan, Ivory Coast, Libya and Syria, but has worked hard not to clarify its attitude toward the United States and Israel. I think, as Pierre Hillard, and probably as many French, that our republic has ceased to be secular, that has ceased to be democratic, and that is no longer social. But if you launch an appeal to delegitimize the institutions, we cannot simply that. We have to go all the way, until the revolution. Analysis for the week for April 30th to May 4th. The second round of French elections held on May 6th. There will no European undecided, as the winds of change will affect all members, although Spain, taken in a deep crisis of reform, structure and cuts, just has a chandelier on the international scene. Remember that the reduction in 2 steps by SP Spain's debt last week, made on Monday, opened with gap down and it is simply plugging holes, but the damage is done, and raise money for being in an already broken situation, will make it more difficult from now. Debit place to feed the huge state lepidoptera which never spends his metamorphosis. Solution butcher, tax increase with serious consequences for the weakest. Nothing in the government, a bit of grey matter to create businesses and jobs. IBEX. Assumed in a wave 5, the IBEX rebounds basically lives on in a situation where hedge funds are increasing their bets on the country's economic collapse, where the bankrupt economy has its next 2 steps in the area of 6,156 and 5,426, has lost area 6,700, point where it now has rebounded as the minimum of 2009. But no one believes that the situation is the same, neither the economy either of the time, and is that the inflated bank capitalization based on the value of their mortgages is a formula that the international economic system not worth it. Despite his cuts, housing is still expensive in Spain, and in a wave C, devastating, which is where at the moment, has little discussion. The C should not be smaller than the wave A. We projected the actual value of 3,100, with an expected date of June 24, 2013. So paint clubs. The temperature will measure the progress of the PIP on Monday. Figure intraday 30 minutes. Have a break on Tuesday, being a public holiday in Spain, and rebound. We will seek an upward movement, since the bridge has been left to intermediaries throughout the thread management, which marks the aim of closing divergences, located in 7,308, as it is immersed in a cycle upward trend with a break in the 6,876, with throwback already done. For both positions the area, setting out in 7,092 with objective 7,286. But be warned, on Thursday of next week's Treasure and auction end will have to see what places and what their acceptance after rebate. The week will conclude on Friday, with the April unemployment rate in the US and Spain. DAX is developing a double minimum in the band 6,495, whose figure is projected to the zone 7,120, where he is going a meeting, with major resistance. Hard to beat, but not impossible. She tells us that the red traffic light is on. It is in a wave 5, with bearish divergence and signs of exhaustion, in the absence of volatility in their last candle. Movements will not be charged until Wednesday, which will bind to the decision of the extraordinary meeting of finance ministers the EU, to announce the new capital requirements demanded of the banks and unemployment data in the Eurozone. Coincidentally, on Thursday, the ECB will meet in Barcelona to decide whether change interest rates. This situation must be analyzed in the 30-minute chart, which is in wave 5 with throwback done, and gives a projection to the area of 6,881, with the possibility of open long positions in the region of 6,828. Dow Jones with a figure very similar to DAX, still missing 170 points to reach the zone of resistance. Next Tuesday is a holiday in the United States, where manufacturing index will be published. Right now finds itself in a wave B, with projection of the C below the A. This should happen when you approach the above resistance. Already in the 30-minute chart we mounted signs. We have a bearish divergence with projection to the zone 13,063, a pattern of gap closing in overbought zone boundary. But be careful, that there are in the last generation of prices, a positive reversal sends back to the zone of maximum, coming into the area of level 51 with a chart trend. Therefore speculative long positions, zone from 13,168 to 13,208. Euro-dollar. The euro continued on the side compass of this currency that dominates 25% of global transactions in trade and banking, giant against the dollar which stands at 65%. Only 10% leave it to other currencies, as the British 3.5% and 3.5% against the Japanese yen. The divergence positive reversal remains to be closed at the 1.3490 area, and each time with less force, but accumulating to achieve further progress. Already in the 30-minute chart, there is a wave 5 in rank formation connection, arriving in overbought area in forming wave 5, and tap the 1.3212 resistance, not to mention the bearish divergence. Very clear signals not to open long positions and opting for a short zone acceleration point, targeting 1.3176 and 1.3208 at 1.3222 stop. Gold, without changing the analysis of last week, are not accused of refuge movements of capital. In his bearish sideways trend, forces us to see the size of the 30 minutes, to see who is in a wave 5, with entry into overbought without bearish divergences, and accumulating to start a new shot. Here, long positions are recommended in the 1666. Oil. Cooling of the conflict with Syria has eased the volatility in oil, whose fronts are now open in other areas, such as Algeria and neighboring Mali in the US strategic plan. This does not mean that the history of energy dominance is over, but only a delay to be taking new positions, before the Russian-Chinese blocking progress. Overcome resistance in the 107.7, and located within a wave 5 projection, to $105.30 over zone, yet close to divergence, in the $105.40, remains an excellent candidate to open long positions in the area $105, with this objective because it is 400 waypoints. Does not forget, good manners and good money makes the children. Gentlemen, see you tomorrow.